Bright Language Center. Let's brighten your future.
Welcome to our grammar class. Today we're going to be talking about the present simple. So what is the present simple? Present simple is a tense in the English language that we use to describe three different situations. The first situation being habits. The second being permanent situations. And finally, things that are always true. So what does this mean? Let's take a look at some examples. Habits, first of all. Habits are things that you do on a daily basis. For example, I play football every day. The second example, for situations that are always true, humans need food. That's always true. And finally, the last example is when we talk about things that are happening right now. For example, he runs down the wing. Okay, so now that we looked at three examples, let's take a look at how do we create and use the grammar. First of all, we need to list the pronouns in English. So we've got I, we've got you, we've got he, she, and it, and we've got we and they. So the way I compose the present simple, is by adding a verb. Let's take the verb play, for example. I play. You play. He, she, and it, we add an S at the end of the verb. So he, she, or it plays. We and they remains the same. Then you continue the rest of the sentence. Let's try to construct this once more time. So for example, I play football. The present simple is right here. The verb. Here we have the pronoun or the subject. Then we have the verb. And we have the rest of the sentence. In this case, we call that the object. So the rule is simple. Make sure that your pronoun matches with the verb in the correct ending. With I, you, we, and they, we do not add an S to the end of the verb. But when it comes to he, she, and it, we must add an S to the end of the verb. Let's take a look at one of those examples here. So for example, David watches TV. Now, David's the name of a man, so that's a he. Then we've got the verb watches, and we add an S to the end of the verb. So that's how you use the present simple to make affirmative sentences. But actually, you can also use the present simple to make negative sentences. For example, David watches TV. Does David always watch TV? What about Robert? Maybe he doesn't watch TV. So how can we write about that? Well, the rule is as following. For I, you, we, and they, we add don't before the verb. So I don't watch TV, you don't play football, they don't run, we add don't. Then again, the special case is for he, she, and it. Once more, he, she, and it's a little bit different than the others. With he and she and it, we must add doesn't. So, it's easy to talk, but let's try. So in this case, I want to make a negative sentence, right? We call them negative statements or negative sentences. So again, let's think of the name of a man. Let's call him Sam. So Sam doesn't run. A very simple sentence. Sam doesn't run. Here, Sam, again, is the subject. Let's just write sub. Then we have the verb and doesn't. We must add do or does before the verb. But for the case of the he, or a she, or a it, we add does, plus the verb in its infinitive form, in its root original form. We do not add an S because the S joins does. It goes here. The S goes here, not there. So we don't say Sam doesn't runs, we say Sam doesn't run. Okay, now that we understand how to make affirmative sentences and negative sentences, finally, how can I use the present simple to make questions? Well, good question. Let's take a look. With questions, it's a little bit different. We must use do or does again. So in this case, let's list the pronouns again. For I, for you, for we, and for they, we use do and then you plus the verb. You can be changed with any subject. For example, do we, do they, whatever the pronoun that you pick, plus the verb. Then again, the special case being he, she, and it. We must switch the location of the verb and the do or does. We start with does this time, not the pronoun. Does he or she plus the verb. All of these must be in the infinitive, the root form. Let's take a look at an example now. Let's start with the first one. I don't play basketball. In this case, you can see we put don't and then the verb. And also notice the verb does not have an S stacked on. And there is no S stacked on at the end of the verb. We put don't and then the verb in its root form. For he, she, and it, we write does she like makeup, for example. We start with the do or does, but for she, he, and she, we use does. So does she like being the verb. And that's how you use the present simple to make affirmative, negative, and question words. I hope you enjoyed this short lesson, and we'll see you on the next video.